This will be the #1 Superflex draft strategy video that you guys will watch this offseason. Today, we're going to be tackling how to handle the quarterback position, all the changes and differences between a one quarterback draft and a Superflex. But let's kick it off with what is a Superflex League.
Yeah, in a Superflex League, by definition, a lot of you guys, maybe when you started fantasy, were in a traditional one quarterback setting. But in a Superflex, there is actually an additional flex spot that you can play either a quarterback, running back, receiver, or tight end. And the biggest differentiation between a two quarterback league versus a Superflex is you do have the luxury where if you're in a pinch, maybe two quarterbacks on bye, you can actually play a positional player in that flex spot. But for the most part, if you do have a Superflex spot in your league, you do want a quarterback in that spot. How to value quarterbacks properly in a new Superflex League. A lot of you guys, again, maybe one quarterback based, maybe see the Underdog contest of a Superflex and want to try to get some drafts in. Underdog Fantasy is the current sharpest market that you can find. And this ADP is pulled from their Superflex contest. As you guys can see, there are 6 quarterbacks going in the first round and 20 quarterbacks going in the top 3 rounds of ADP.
Yeah, so definitely a vast difference. You are not going to get Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson in the 3rd round like you would in a one quarterback league. In our redraft rankings manifesto, I actually have my Superflex rankings in there. I have 14 quarterbacks valued in my first 3 rounds. And in my Superflex rankings, QB 25 is off the board by the end of the 6th round. So you do want to prioritize getting 2 guys, maybe 3 that you can start in a week in and week out basis. So let's talk about why hitting on quarterback is so amplified in Superflex. Because obviously it's important to hit on your quarterback in one quarterback leagues, but quarterback value over replacement is amplified in Superflex because the top 10 quarterbacks in value over replacement over the last 4 years posted a value over replacement number above 175. Mid to low end QB1s like Bo Nix, Jared Goff, guys that had decent seasons last year, but weren't like Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts types. They posted a value over replacement score of 106. So that means that having Lamar, having Allen, having Hurts, having Daniels, guys that were value over replacement studs was 65% at least more valuable to your fantasy team than those very solid Bo Nix, Jared Goff type of options. Going down from QB, 6 to 12, where, Bo Nix and Jared Goff were scoring, down to QB 10 to 15, that number becomes 170% more valuable to have Hurts, to have Daniels, to have Lamar. QB2s too, like guys that were like not really that startable back-end QB2s in one quarterback formats. Hurts, Lamar, Daniels, Allen, 3 to 5 times more valuable than having let's say Trevor Lawrence last year, who was not startable in one quarterback format. So to have those Lamar and Allen types, it is so amplified. If you get to pick in the top 5 picks, the top 4 picks, make sure Allen, Lamar, Daniels, and Hurts are the first 4 players off the board in Superflex. Because again, as you can see on this chart, the way value over replacement plays itself out in Superflex formats is that if you have those studs, it is a major positional advantage to the tune of having, Jahmyr Gibbs or Christian McCaffrey at the running back position.
Yeah, well, it makes sense too. You're looking at, for example, if a lot of you guys play, Dynasty Superflex leagues, the quarterbacks are going to be pushed up the board, both from a VORT perspective and obviously with Dynasty, you do have the long-term perspective that quarterbacks inherently will hold their value more in running back and wide receiver. But I still think that principle does apply in the redraft format because, like you said, being able to hit on a Josh Allen, a Jalen Hurts, an elite league-winning level quarterback is huge because you're getting a legitimate guy that you can plug into your lineup every single week and trust for 25 plus fantasy points per game. On top of that, if you can hit on, this year's Baker Mayfield from last year, Baker Mayfield, top 5 level quarterback, was going more so in that mid-teen area. If you hit on a league winner in that, quarterback 12 to 15 range of ADP, you are looking at legitimately 45 plus points per game at your quarterback spots.
Yeah, one of the hardest parts of Superflex drafts for new people who don't play Superflex very often is deciding when to get your quarterbacks so you don't get locked out. Because if you're in a 12-man league, there's 24 quarterbacks probably that you want to be starting on any given week across the league. And you also probably want to have a 3rd quarterback who's at least a starter. So it's hard for somebody who plays Superflex to be like Bo Nix versus Justin Jefferson, because that's a legitimate decision people will have to make in a Superflex league. You go, how am I not going to take Justin Jefferson there? But in Superflex, a guy like Bo Nix is going to have that top 5, top 8 quarterback upside, and that could make you indestructible at quarterback if you hit on a big league winner like Bo Nix could be. So that's something that a lot of people have to decipher for the first time, really, is deciding between back-end QB1s and guys who are like elite positional advantages at wide receiver, running back, and tight end.
And I would say, study the board, know your league well, and just compare everything in relation to opportunity bundles. Like what quarterback plus what flex talent equals maybe the elite quarterback plus a lesser flex talent. Like that is the best relative value to be able to apply to the super flex drafts. Because like you said, it's so hard from a pure, flex position versus quarterback position, who to take perspective. But when you combine it with one quarterback plus a flex player, you can kind of tell yourself which do you prefer.
Yeah, in like the 5th round, you'll get like Garrett Wilson there. Would you rather have Garrett Wilson and Bo Nix, or would you rather have Justin Jefferson and Cam Ward?
Yeah, exactly. That would be a decision that you would have to make on the clock for sure. But in terms of which tier of quarterbacks you should be targeting in your super flex leagues, the biggest drop off in the quarterback position in the last 5 years has actually been from, the top 6 guys to the low end quarterback ones, or as we see, the low end quarterback ones to the high end quarterback twos. At the end of the day, if you can get a high-end quarterback 122 plus point per game player, which is the average from 2020 to 2024, like you had mentioned earlier, those are the highest value over replacement players in fantasy. And because you can start up to 2 of them a week, if you do end up hitting on 2 in your draft, that is the biggest advantage. And that's why guys like Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, etc., go in the top 6 of those drafts.
Yeah, some years are different than others. Like last year, for example, the high-end QB1s lapped the field. Like Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Daniels, those guys were so much better than the back-end QB1s. But some years, that's not the case. Some years, we do get some good Dax, Purdy's, Jordan Love types that have really good back-end QB1 seasons. And some years, quarterbacks actually a little deeper. And down the board, 20 quarterbacks are pretty productive. So it is all about kind of feeling out what the ADP looks like. This year, in my opinion, the high-end QBs are definitely extremely valuable. But I do think up to like QB 23, 25 or whatever, you can get some decent production there. Like I said, in 2024, high-end QB1s were definitely the way to go. Low-end QB1s were down from the averages. Low-end QB1s to QB 13 to 24, actually, there was not that much of a difference. Like you can see in 2024, 15.14 points per game from QBs 19 to 24 versus 18.85 from QBs 7 to 12. And if you compare that to the averages, it was a much wider gap, 19.45 from 2020 to 2024, and then 15.04 for the QBs 19 to 24 during that time. So again, sometimes it's all about feeling of what kind of year are we in? Is this a deep quarterback year? Is this a high-end quarterback year? Is this a quarterback year that is good to punt in Superflex? This year, I tend to think that getting an elite quarterback as your anchor and then getting a good, deeper quarterback down the board is probably the way to go about things.
Yeah, well, yeah, it is pretty hilarious to see like the difference between the average of quarterbacks 7 to 12 is less than the difference between them and the top end quarterbacks. Like a 25% difference between quarterbacks 1 to 6 and 7 to 12 being more than the difference between quarterbacks 7 to 12 and 19 to 24 absolutely makes sense when you think about it. But it's wild to think about that. If you just don't get one of those elite quarterbacks, you are already at a significant disadvantage. Therefore, you have to try and see out of the next group of guys who can enter that top 6 area. The best value that you can have in your Superflex draft is being able to project out who is the next top 6 quarterback in points per game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. In 2020 and 2021, like I said, having a top 6 guy was less of an advantage because QB 7 to 12 actually produced over 20 points per game. And you see the discrepancy was like 15% difference, 18% difference. There was a lot less of a discrepancy. This year is deep at quarterback. So even though we expect Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels, Jalen Hurts to separate from the pack a little bit because they are mobile quarterbacks who can get it done with their arms as well. Once you get past those guys, there's legitimately 10, 15 guys who could finish as the quarterback 5 to 8 in fantasy this year.
I completely agree. Outside of the top 4, I think the clear top 4 right now, you're Josh Allen, you're Lamar Jackson, you're Jalen Hurts, and you're Jaden Daniels, specifically in relation to this year. I feel very confident that all 4 of those guys, if they play 17 games, will finish as top 5 quarterbacks. But after that, I mean, I like Joe Burrow. But is he really all that different from a projection of like Dak Prescott, or maybe if you can go to a Baker Mayfield, Patrick Mahomes? Like to me, there's a lot more, I would say, incongruency in that range, to the point where just hitting on a cheaper option is going to be the way I approach it. I mean, we'll talk about, the optimal strategy for how to construct a quarterback room, but realistically this year, I do think once that Joe Burrow range starts, even close to that quarterback 8, quarterback 9 area, I would just rather wait a couple rounds and take the Dak Prescott and take the, even later on, Trevor Lawrence, Baker Mayfield, guys like that in that quarterback 10 to 13 area.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's all about picking your quarterbacks strategically. Another question that some people might have is, well, how many should I draft? Because you can start, or you should be starting 2 every single week, but drafting 3 quarterbacks is the optimal way to play it in terms of your overall draft board, specifically 3 quarterbacks who are probably going to start for the whole season. There will be league mates of yours, if you're new to Superflex, who draft 10 quarterbacks and piss the whole league off. We had one audition for the Flock League, actually, who drafted 10 quarterbacks in his league and just held people hostage to try and trade them. Don't do that. Honestly, it's no fun for anyone. However, your regular season score goes down once you start drafting beyond 3. So I get that this is best ball data, and in a redraft league, you can actually trade quarterbacks and you can hold people hostage if you absolutely wanted to. But it is optimal to draft 3 quarterbacks because you still have to fill out a good wide receiver core, a good running back core, and a good tight end core. To me, the optimal way to play how to get your quarterbacks is feel like you have 2 guys who can be back-end QB1s or better in fantasy. Ideally, you get an elite quarterback, and then you pair him with like a Dak Prescott or a Brock Purdy or a Jordan Love or a Trevor Lawrence or a Justin Herbert or something like that. And then your third swing at the quarterback position could come in the mid-rounds, say Bryce Young, Cam Ward, Matthew Stafford, Tua Tagovailoa, Geno Smith, Sam Darnold, Aaron Rodgers. One of the Colts quarterbacks is a good shot to swing on. Yes. It's probably ideal that you don't swing on someone who could lose their job. Joe Flacco, for example, with the Browns, could lose his job. Either of the Colts quarterbacks could lose their job. The New Orleans Saints quarterbacks, Tyler Shuck and Spencer Rattler, could lose their job. Russell Wilson could lose his job. If they're going to start most of the season, they're probably better bets to have as your first 3 quarterbacks, and let your league mates chase the Flaccos up the board, the Shucks up the board, because they feel like they need quarterback help.
The one caveat I will say, maybe in your league, the elite quarterbacks get depressed a little bit. Because like I said, we're citing Underdog ADP, but maybe if you guys are just starting a Superflex League and everybody's kind of new to the format, and you know you can get a Josh Allen plus a Jaden Daniels on your 1-2 turn. Well, if you just do that and then, draft an Anthony Richardson very late on, your quarterback 3 is only ever going to enter your lineup when Josh Allen and Jaden Daniels are on bye, or they are enough of a good projection to make the case for starting over. And Anthony Richardson is one of the few quarterbacks that doesn't have job security that in the right matchup could be a top 3 quarterback in rankings one week.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I went through all of the micro player takes for all the quarterbacks in the predicting the next league winning quarterback video. And you guys can definitely check that out. We'll link that in the description of this one. This is how I scored the individual quarterbacks. Basically, just if you didn't watch that video, green means good, yellow means pretty good, orange means boomer bust, and red means kind of a bad pick. You guys can see that after the top 10-ish quarterbacks are off the board, there's great value to be had all the way from like QB 11 Brock Purdy all the way down to like QB 24 Matthew Stafford, assuming he's healthy there. So again, ideally you secure at least 2, if not 3 of those guys if you're in a competitive Superflex league and people are going to value the quarterback position heavily, which, like Danny said, the caveat is that if it's everybody's first time playing Superflex, they might not know how to value quarterbacks. So maybe you don't want to spend 3 of your first 6 picks on the quarterback position, knowing you can punt your third quarterback or even your second quarterback a little bit later.
Exactly. And again, maybe something's egregious. Like the only scenario I would say, oh yeah, you can spend your first 3 picks at quarterback is if you get 3 of the top 4 guys. Like if it's that egregious, sure, maybe they'll realize at that point and you could use some tradability. But at the same time, like I said, like even if you just get your first round, second round quarterbacks and they're the elite guys, if you have like an alluring value, like the quarterback 13 off the board, you can get in the 4th round. At that point, like it's more beneficial for you to fill out the rest of your lineup, because how many times is the quarterback 13, 14, like I said, realistically going to enter over Jaden Daniels and Josh Allen?
Yeah, exactly. And I'll bring up this chart again, because ideally you're going to secure 2 quarterbacks that finishes QB1s. But it's important to clarify that if you think a guy who's going in mid to late QB2 range, like Michael Penix, for example, or Bryce Young, for example, if you think he's going to be a QB1, then it's just like running backs and wide receivers. Like think about in one quarterback drafts, there's a 5th round running back that you absolutely love that you think can be an RB1. Well, then you're going to target him heavily and you're going to structure your draft strategy around that. Maybe you would pass on a 3rd round running back knowing you can get Kenneth Walker in the 5th round, who's like your guy this year or something like that. So it just behaves the same way as it does at the other positions. Only now the most important position in sports is actually consequential to your fantasy lineup, which is why we don't play in a lot of redraft Superflex. You and I usually play in Dynasty Superflex leagues, but it is a lot more strategic, and draft strategy becomes a lot more nuanced, because now 0 RB and hero RB and double hero RB is a lot more of a nuanced conversation when you have an extra quarterback starting.
Yeah, it's another important principle in Superflex, and I do think this is important both in one quarterback and Superflex, but specifically in Superflex, you want to value stacking a lot more. Stacking becomes more valuable in your Superflex leagues. For example, if we look at the data from 2023, if you had that Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb stack, Dak Prescott top 4 level quarterback, CeeDee Lamb the wide receiver 1 in fantasy, if you just had Dak, you would have had a 9.8% win rate. But if you had Dak plus CeeDee Lamb, you would have had a 28.4% win rate. And keep in mind, that's in relation to one quarterback hit rate. So when you combine the fact that in a super flex, hitting on a quarterback is much more advantageous than in a one quarterback league, the fact that you can up your win percentage with one consolidated bet can be the difference between winning and losing your league.
Yeah, and precisely, if you were in a Superflex League, instead of a 28.4% win rate, you would have had a 34.3% win rate, because now you can start an extra quarterback. When you're making that bet on a player, like we said, for example, you take CeeDee Lamb early. For example, you take an early quarterback. Let's say you take Jaden Daniels with the third pick. Well, grabbing Terry McLaurin makes sense, because Terry McLaurin consolidates that bet that you took Jaden Daniels third overall. You think Jaden Daniels is going to have a massive season. Well, it would stand to reason that Terry McLaurin or Deebo Samuel or somebody else would be brought along for the ride there. So why not make yourself right twice? Stack Dak with CeeDee Lamb, stack Burrow with Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, whoever you can get your hands on. It doesn't always have to be super highly valued players either. It also could be in reverse. Like, let's say you take Michael Penix in the 5th round and you're like, I think Kyle Pitts is undervalued this year. I'm going to take Kyle Pitts in round 11 or something like that, or round 13. And you're making a consolidated bet when you took Michael Penix, but you're also getting another pass catcher along for the ride. And it could be different too. Like maybe you take Drake May in the 3rd round, Stephon Diggs in round 9, something like that. Imagine stacking Burrow and Chase last year, because you could have done it. It was actually available at the 1-2 turn.
Yeah, and stacking is beneficial regardless, but specifically with pocket style quarterbacks. If you think about it, the way CeeDee Lamb hits is that Dak Prescott absolutely smashes, and vice versa. The way Dak Prescott hits, like you said, is CeeDee Lamb absolutely smashing. Whereas like with more mobile quarterbacks, they can maybe still get there with their legs. At the end of the day, it's going to be beneficial, but specifically with passing quarterbacks, if you believe in Michael Penix, like you said, if you believe in Caleb Williams taking that next step, if you believe in Matthew Stafford, if he's healthy, supporting those top 2 wide receivers, make yourself right twice.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the size of your league matters too, because if you guys are in 8-man or 10-man super flexes, the quarterback position is not going to be as valuable as a 12-man super flex. Like, just think about it mathematically. In a 12 or a 14-man super flex, everybody's going to want 2 quarterbacks to start, right? If you have a 14-man super flex, that is 28 quarterbacks that are going to probably need to be starting. Whereas if you're in an 8-man super flex, that's only 16 quarterbacks that are going to need to be starting. So in 12 and 14-man super flexes specifically, you do not want to get locked out at quarterback to the point that you're starting Joe Flacco as your QB2 or something. You want to use that early on in your drafts to tie break, because again, let's say about 26 to 30 NFL quarterbacks on a given year are not going to get benched at some point. If you've got the data on the league, especially, that would also be very helpful. Like, let's say this is your 5th year in your Superflex drafts with your friends. You can look at the past draft boards and see how they handled quarterback. When did the QB1s get dried up? When did the QB2s get dried up? How early were quarterbacks going in relation to, let's say, the Superflex ADP on the market that year? And you can go back and find that data. Fantasy Pros has past Superflex ADP. Underdog has their past ADP available. So use that data to your advantage. The absolute best piece of advice that I can give you is, whatever your league tendency is in Superflex, adapt to the edge there. So if your league tendency is that they're going to fade quarterbacks, then the edge is that you get the elite quarterbacks at a value. If your league tendency is that people will push quarterbacks like crazy up the board, then you probably want to get your quarterbacks early.
Exactly. Just like we mentioned, the hero running back, double hero running back, hero wide receiver, 0 running back strategies. Zigging while your league mates are zagging is ultimately just going to be the best strategy in fantasy, period. Like, if you understand that your league mates are going to overvalue or undervalue a certain position, tending to be filled with elite options out of that position is your best bet. So to recap the strategy points here, if you can get one of those top 4 guys at quarterback, do it at all costs. Whether you have the 1st overall pick, the 2nd overall pick, 3rd overall pick, that is the valuation for these guys in a Superflex league. And it's gravy on top if you can get them on that 1-2 turn. Ideally, you can secure at least 1 quarterback, 1 in ADP. If you miss out on one of those elite guys, maybe you can get, a Dak Prescott. Maybe you can get a Caleb Williams if you believe in him, a Bo Nix. I do not want to be left in a situation where I'm starting Matthew Stafford, Geno Smith, or Cam Ward consistently, 2 of them on a week-to-week basis in a Superflex league. Don't get locked out. Secure your 2 quarterbacks before that quarterback 23 range, maybe 3 if the value lines up. Like I said, maybe you go elite at the top. Your 2 elite guys are insane. At that point, I don't mind going a little bit cheaper on quarterback 3, but for the most part, if you're in a competitive league, you're probably not going to get 2 of the top 4 guys. So I want to make sure that my quarterbacks 2 and 3 are strong if I don't have 2 elite guys. Your goal ultimately should be hitting on 2 quarterback ones, even if you do view one as an ADP quarterback 2 at this point, whether it's, like you said, believing in Michael Penix, whether you believe in Drake May, guys like that. If you think a guy has a very strong opportunity to be a quarterback 1, I would even be comfortable taking him up the board because, like we said, hitting on a top 6 quarterback in terms of points per game is going to be extremely beneficial. Like we said, stack when you have an opportunity, consolidate those bets, and factor in the size of your league.
Yeah, for sure. All those things make sense. You do have to start really treating the quarterback position almost as if you were treating it like the running back position, where it starts to get dried up a little bit quicker. You want to take your elite upside swings like just you would, we always talk about don't draft running backs unless they have elite upside. The same can be applied for quarterbacks. Like, let's say you don't want to draft Jared Goff because you don't think he has elite upside or something like that, then don't draft him. Draft JJ McCarthy or whatever instead, whoever you think has elite upside in that same territory. So we are going to show you guys our Superflex strategy here. We're going to head into a mock draft. One of us will be at the top of the board, so we're going to secure one of those top 4 anchors at your quarterback position. The other one will be later down the board, which is where more of the strategy comes in. When do I attack the quarterback? When do I make those tie breaks? What are the opportunity bundles of the ADP? So we're going to head into that right now. All right, so we're now into the mock draft. Again, we are doing a Superflex mock. Danny's going to be picking from the 3 hole, which is one of the best spots you can be picking from because you're going to secure one of those top quarterbacks. You're still going to get some good value falling to you. And the league settings that we're going to do this based on are a Superflex league. So 1 quarterback, 1 Superflex spot, 2 flexes, 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, 1 tight end, full PPR. And we're going to go 15 rounds here because we got 6 bench spots or whatever. So, Danny, you're on the board here. Ideally, you probably would have secured one of those first 2 guys. Maybe the best spot to pick from is probably 2 because you get one of the first 2 who are a slight mini tier ahead of Jaden Daniels and Jalen Hurts. But I'll let you take it away here.
That's actually not even how I have it ranked. I do have Jaden Daniels in that tier. And like we mentioned in the strategy portion, what was the number 1 principle, Corey? If you have
top 4 guy at all costs.
If you have a top 4 guy facing you, man, I love Jamar Chase. I love Bijan Robinson. You cannot pass on Jaden Daniels because if he hits, you're talking about a potential 25+ point per game score.
Yeah, just think about it in terms of scarcity. How many receivers is Jamar Chase absolutely going to outscore? There's probably 7 or 8 wide receivers that could outscore Jamar Chase this year. There is not 7 or 8 quarterbacks that can outscore these top 4 guys, outside of the 4 that we're talking about here. It's a scarce position when it comes to this 23 to 25 point per game upside. Pretty much only Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Daniels, and Hurts have it. Maybe, Kyler Murray has a bounce back or something like that who can also run. But for the most part, you got to get one of these top 4 dudes. They are easily the most scarce. And I am going to adjust the board because there's no way in hell Jalen Hurts
just
should
put
be
Hurts
on the
for
board
Burrow.
for me. I'm just going to change Hurts right here just because if Hurts falls to you here, auto pick. But I'm going to try and do this as if I'm not drafting with a bunch of complete sand eaters. So I will go here, and I have Patrick Mahomes on the board for me. I do think that I can probably get him in the 2nd round. I mean, in a sharper draft, he would probably be gone. I do like his outlook. I could go with a Saquon Barkley. I could go with a Malik Neighbors or something like that. I'm going to grab Patrick Mahomes here because I think in a sharper room, I would be forced to take him here if he fell to me. So I'll grab Patrick Mahomes there and see kind of what falls to me on the way back. My highest overall player in terms of 1 quarterback leagues is, I believe, Malik Neighbors on the board currently. So that's probably the direction I'm going to go. Could also go over Christian McCaffrey as well. What's up?
You pop Neighbors over Puka now?
I did, yeah. Since the Stafford stuff, I moved Puka to the end of his tier. And the tier that I had him in was Justin Jefferson, Malik Neighbors, Puka Nacua. So I popped Puka to the end of his tier because of that Stafford news that we have there. So I'm going to roll with Malik Neighbors, and I'll go with him. Again, when you're doing a Superflex draft, it also becomes more important to think about the fact that you might have to tie break to other positions. You might have to tie break to quarterback because you can not get that many quarterbacks outside of the first, 3 to 4 rounds.
Yeah, for sure. But I'm back on the clock here, and there's a clear best player available on the board here. So I'm not going to overthink it. Devon Achane is a guy I would rank in a first-round setting of a 1 quarterback league. And there's a couple players a la Trey McBride that I would simply rather Devon Achane straight up over in a Superflex. So I'll take him here, and I'll see potentially what ends up falling back to me. Yeah, so we're falling back here, and I'm looking at the quarterback board. I do see there's plenty of options that I still like to potentially get as my quarterback too, and there is a lot of still needle moving flex position options. So for me, actually here, I'm gonna fade quarterback one more time, and hopefully I can still get a Dak Prescott maybe falls back to be Drake May, Brock Purdy, Caleb Williams, somebody like that, Jordan Love, for example, as well. I feel confident at least one of those guys potentially making it back here. So I'm gonna go with the flex talent. My highest rated player here would actually be Chase Brown. So I guess I'm going full unk here.
Yeah, and I would like to address one elephant in the room right now, because there's some of you guys that are probably in Superflex leagues where Bo Nix, Baker Mayfield types would have been off the board already.
Correct.
The quarterback position, maybe by the end of the third round, like we said on Underdog, is dried up. About 20 quarterbacks off the board by the end of the third round. The one distinction between Underdog ADP versus Home League ADP in terms of like the way Sleeper has their 2 quarterback and Superflex ADP set up is that there are no waiver wires on best ball in Underdog, right? So when a quarterback goes down with an injury, that quarterback's just dead in best ball. You know what I mean? Like on managed league, you could go pick up the backup quarterback and maybe use him in Superflex. So it does undervalue the quarterback position just a little bit, knowing that you can trade for quarterback, knowing that you can pick up quarterbacks on waivers. So again, maybe your quarterback market in your Superflex league would be that there's 11 to 15 quarterbacks off the board already, but we're just simply going off of Sleeper's ADP right now. So if you guys play in Sleeper leagues, just know that it might be a little bit exploitable in terms of the value you can get on some of these quarterbacks as it currently stands. So I'm on the board right now. I believe T. Higgins and Tyreek Hill would be my highest rated wide receivers on the board. Breece Hall, Amari, and Hampton, those guys as my highest rated running backs. And then George Kittle, also a highly valued player for me. I'm actually going to take my second quarterback in Kyler Murray because I do think that he is a tier break for me there at that position. And T. Higgins goes off the board. I'm going to grab me some Tyreek Hill here. So I grab with 2 wide receivers, 2 quarterbacks to lead off of my draft. And again, in Superflex, it becomes a little bit more viable to go like 0 RB, hero RB, light on the running back position, because you are starting an additional quarterback that helps make running back a smaller part of your starting lineup, as we talked about in the double hero and zero videos.
For sure. Now, if you are high on Terry McLaurin, like I said, you could very well stack him here because stacking is extremely beneficial. For me, I do have Terry McLaurin as a fade this year. I understand that I do have Jaden Daniels, but at the same time, if I really want a stacking option in terms of in relation to the offense, I like Brian Robinson's value. Maybe because of the Superflex setting, I can get maybe a Deebo Samuel type later. But like I also said, because I have a mobile quarterback, I feel like there's less pressure to stack him. Like, for example, if I had a Joe Burrow, a Patrick Mahomes, I'd feel a lot more necessary to stack him with a target. It's just simply my evaluation on Terry McLaurin as to why I would not take him here. So with that being said, George Kittle does go off the board, so no tight end I would take up here. Running backs, there's a couple guys I like, but because I grabbed 2 at that other spot, I will go towards my wide receiver 1 and hope that I can get a falling value at the quarterback spot, considering I do like a couple guys here. So I will fortunate because it might be sniping you, but he's actually my next highest rated player after Evans. It's going to be Xavier Worthy. So I will grab Xavier Worthy here. Like I said, if you do like Terry McLaurin more than I do, it's probably actually more beneficial for you to take Terry McLaurin there. That's just a personal take of mine that I don't like Terry McLaurin as much.
Yeah, again, I probably would push back on that, even though Daniels is a mobile quarterback. I feel like you probably should be in on Terry McLaurin just because you took Daniels.
It's just honestly a player analysis. I think he's one of the most overvalued players in fantasy. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And there's still there's only been 2 quarterbacks that have gone off since your Kyler Murray. So I think I'm going to push the envelope one more. Again, it's about knowing your quarterback rooms. Like we said, if you know your quarterback room is going to be undervaluing the position, like if there was a clear-cut top 6 option here, yeah, obviously I would just take them. But because there's a lot of quarterbacks kind of blending in, I think I'm going to play the ADP and grab another wide receiver here. And I'm looking at the options here. I really do still like Travis Hunter, so I will snag him in terms of the upside here as my wide receiver 2.
I'm really surprised you didn't take Caleb Williams or Drake May there, to be honest.
Because I think I can get a Dak Prescott type to fall back or Jordan Love.
Yeah, and I'm pissed because I wanted Kenneth Walker to fall back to me, and
Yeah.
he just went right before my selection.
Yeah, no, that is very unfortunate.
Yeah, so I'm going to be operating here. I do have Trevion Henderson, I believe my highest rated running back currently on the board. Tight end is dried up pretty quick. I'm not really probably looking in that direction. I do think I still have too many great wide receivers to the point that I probably am still going to go in that direction. I guess I'm building out like kind of a 0 RB type of build here. I could grab another quarterback too. I mean, like in this league market, maybe this is a league market where people don't really know the value of quarterbacks. And I feel like, hey, Jared Goff's going to have a great season. Dak Prescott's going to have a great season. Jordan Love's going to have a great season. I feel like I can trade one of those guys later in the year. Again, I would only encourage you to do that once in your league. I would not do that at every single pick and take all the quarterbacks off the board. But if you feel like there's a falling value and you want to take that option and feel like you can, once people realize the value of quarterbacks midway through the season, early in the season, maybe flip them for some value then. Again, the sleeper ADP, frankly, is just, it's undervaluing the quarterback position. Even though I set this to 2 quarterback and not super flex, it's still not valuing the quarterback position appropriately to me. So I guess I'm just going to play to the ADP room that I'm in, and I'm going to grab Devontae Smith here, and maybe I'll grab a quarterback on the way back that I can go with.
Believe me, too, if I was forced to take a quarterback at the 5-3, I'd have no problem. I was just kind of evaluating the room as to why I did not take him at that 5-3 spot.
Yep. And again, I feel like Jordan Love is just way too good to be on the board, as is really Prescott. Those guys are tier breaks for me at the quarterback position. So I'm going to grab Jordan Love here and just have him as my 3rd quarterback for the time being. And then whether it's Kyler, whether it's Love, whether it's Mahomes, probably move off of one of those guys into the season, because I just feel like the position is undervalued. And Danny gets absolutely his heart ripped out when Dak Prescott goes right before him.
Which I'm cool with, because what was the other factor that we mentioned? Actually, I passed on it when I took Xavier Worthy, but we do want to stack. I do have Travis Hunter. Let's make myself right twice, and let's grab Trevor Lawrence on this turn.
Yeah, again, if you guys are playing in Superflex leagues on Sleeper, I would say the biggest takeaway you should have right now is that the ADP looks exploitable. If you're getting guys that I have, like Caleb Williams and Drake May, are inside my top 35, 40 players in my Superflex ranking. So the fact that you can maybe, again, know your league, maybe get these guys in like the 4th, 5th round, that maybe pushes you away from drafting a Kyler Murray type, or drafting somebody who's going to go in that 2nd, 3rd round territory. So I'm back on the clock here. Again, I could argue that Michael Penix would be my pick. I just don't want to hoard quarterbacks too much. I do think he is the best player on the board. I do get myself a running back who I can anchor my core with some touches. I grab myself Isaiah Pacheco there. I do think he's a really good value at this point in the draft. So I like that. And then I'm going to grab Jalen Watt. Actually, I got Tyreek Hill already, so maybe I don't want to do that.
But if you had Tua...
Honest to God, dude, I think that Waddle's just the clear best receiver on the board. Maybe I go running back. No, honestly, I don't care that I have Tyreek already. He just should not be on the board.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
In redraft leagues, you can always make trades. Maybe Tyreek Hill plus Jordan Love gets me to a better receiver or something like that.
Yeah. I'm back on the clock here. A couple of tight ends that are interesting, but I still personally love a guy like Colson Loveland, and he's not the highest rated here. So I will play the ADP game. Potentially I can get him on the way back. Wide receivers here, I think Matthew Golden is an intriguing option. And obviously Jaden Reed is a big time fan of ours as well. It's close. I also obviously love Josh Downs a good bit here as well. So I'm not pressed to take my quarterback 3 here, because I know these 2 guys on the turn both have 2 quarterbacks. I could potentially engage in taking a quarterback at that 9-3 spot. So I'm just going to grab another wide receiver, fill up my flexes here, and I'm going to take Josh Downs. I'm going to take Josh Downs because if I am forced to go cheaper at that quarterback 3 spot, at least I have 2 options that can sack with them.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Again, if I were in your position, I'd probably be taking Michael Penix or Bryce Young, because I do think you might get locked out as your 3rd quarterback with like a guy who could lose his starting job type of thing. But I'll let you make your pick.
Yeah, potentially. There's just there's still tight ends, like even Tucker Kraft later, Njoku, Loveland. I don't know why Johnny Smith's ADP is still so high, but that's kind of crazy. Like there's tight ends I still like here, but yeah, you know what? Like you said, because I'm weaker at quarterback too, I'm just going to grab Penix because I do think he is the clear best option here. But hopefully I can get a tight end to fall back. But yeah, I got my value regardless. 9-3 is a pretty insane value for him.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I'm back on the clock. I only have 1 running back at this point in time, and I do kind of want to get some touches here, but unfortunately, I just don't think that any of these guys are great options. Like the sleeper ADP is kind of busted and shit. But I mean, I guess my highest rated running back at the moment would be like a Tajay Spears or a Charbonnet or a Jordan Mason. But I feel like I can kind of run with Isaiah Pacheco as like a weaker hero running back type of strategy. And knowing that I might maybe take Tyreek Hill plus Jordan Love and go trade for a stud wide receiver if this were a real league, I maybe want to grab a Jaden Reed here just to get myself a little stronger at the wide receiver depth spot in case I do move off of somebody like that. And I'm going to grab Colston Loveland as my tight end here because I do think he is the best tight end on the board currently. And I started a huge run of tight ends there too.
Yeah. But thankfully I got my guy to fall back. I'm not even going to risk that the computer doubles up.
Yeah.
With that being said, Ibuka fucking falling would have been lovely. Yeah, no, it is interesting. Running backs are fucking absolutely ripped off the board. So thankfully I got my 2 heroes here. I'm probably going to grab one more wide receiver and then just backfill at running back because there's nobody that really sticks out at running back right now. The issue, though, is that, Stephon Diggs is here. I will take Stephon Diggs. That's really nice value.
Yeah, no, it definitely makes a lot of sense there. I'm going to have to do some gymnastics here at running back to try and fill up the score because my core is not looking great at the moment.
Najee Harris, RB1.
Yeah, never going to be doing that.
1738.
Yeah, I'm going to take Tajay Spears as a guy who just is the highest valued running back for me on the board. And I was hoping Javonte Williams would fall back to me so I could bank some early season touches. Unfortunately, that was not going to be the case. But RJ Harvey was listed as the 5th string running back on the Denver Broncos depth chart. So I think I could count on some early season touches from J.K. Dobbins there. So grab Dobbins and Spears again. Would I like to be better at the running back position, especially running back 2 behind Pacheco? Yes, but when you have 2 kind of positional advantages, or at least I hope they're positional advantages based on where I drafted them with Mahomes and Murray, and then Jordan Love is another trade chip, I feel like I could, let's say week 3 into the season, Jordan Love's having a great breakout year, and I can go trade for a running back who went in a similar territory. Like, let's say Kenneth Walker is getting out to a slow start or something. I could maybe trade Jordan Love straight up for a guy like Kenneth Walker and transition some of the wealth I built at quarterback to the running back position where I'm weaker.
Yeah, for sure. It does suck that Mooney was off the board. I was kind of hoping he would fall back because I do have Michael Penix here, but who knows? Maybe a 15th rounder. If I want to take a flyer on a Kyle Pitts, I'd feel comfortable doing that. Actually, he's already off the board. Who the heck took him at the 11-7? That is disgusting. In a Superflex 11-7, hell no. All jokes aside, though, I did take Tank Bigsby on that first turn, 12-10. You mentioned early touches. I feel confident with him as my RB3 here. And then a guy that is still holding out, apparently due to the reason of being, quote unquote, from him himself, business. That's all he said. James Cook is still holding out. So therefore, I will take Ray Davis as a high-end handcuff at this 13-3 spot.
Yeah, no, that makes definitely some sense there. Again, I feel like the running back position is one that I should aim towards because I don't really have that great of a core at the moment. I'll grab Dylan Sampson here. Still no sign of Quinshon, so we have no idea when the hell he's coming back. And my bags of him are starting to feel a lot of pain.
Oh, man.
But Dylan Sampson obviously going to be a huge beneficiary if Quinshon's not back very soon. And again, I'm just going to do the thing where this is too good of a value to pass up. If Anthony Richardson's starting at the beginning of the year and you're in a Superflex league and he falls to the 1402, even though I already have 3 quarterbacks, that's a trade chip right there. If he has 2 good weeks to begin the season, maybe people think he turns the corner. This is an asset that could go from the 1402, what I just spent on him, to maybe valued as a 5th, 4th, 6th round player, and I can go trade for a running back using him. So again, I guess I'm hoarding 4 quarterbacks here, but when the sleeper ADP is going to be this broken, I'm going to take Anthony Richardson at the 1402.
I definitely didn't anticipate my Josh Downs stack to get sniped there, but
I mean, Daniel Jones is still there.
The
actual starter.
Yeah, we'll end up seeing. Surprised though. Even Geno Smith's on the board here. That's pretty weird.
Yeah, if you're taking anything away from this video, you draft a redraft Superflex.
If you're drafting on Sleeper, maybe you can wait a quarterback a little bit longer. I will say though, if you are on Underdog or if you're in a league that knows what the fuck they're doing, this is probably not going to be exactly how your draft goes. Let's just say that.
Yeah, it's like on Underdog, like on your second pick at your 210, like Bo Nix and Baker Mayfield would have been off the board already, and they didn't go until the mid 3rd round. Like we would have seen all of the starting quarterbacks probably dry up by like the mid 5th, early 6th. And the fact that we saw like a lot of those starting quarterbacks still be available into the 8th and 9th round is definitely something that's an idiosyncrasy in the sleeper ADP. That would not be the case in a sharp Superflex league.
Damn, I've been digging through these running back position, and I think the guy that I'm going to lean to, like I said, we want upside here. I trust this offense. I'm going to take Roshan Johnson. It is pretty ugly at running back, though. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, no, it's pretty dusty. If this were a real league, I would be praying and hoping that the league mates realize pretty quickly that they went too light at quarterback, and I could trade Richardson or Jordan Love for a running back.
Also showed out newest LA Charger Keenan Allen here.
Yeah, that jersey swap's going to hit different. So
yeah, no facts. It is funny. I wish, because you know how much Keenan Allen I was drafting earlier in the off season. I stopped a little bit in July, but I'm still at a healthy 20%. But at one point I was at 35%.
How is Geno Smith on the board? This is a quarterback who's not going to lose his starting job, and the sleeper ADP is so dog shit.
Wait, you don't agree with Blake Corum going over him?
No, I do not. I do not. Again, if this were a real league, I would take Geno Smith. I'm just going to pretend he's not on the board because nobody's this stupid to let us
sub him out for Blake Corum right now. Just put him.
Yeah, I'm literally, just for the sake of people not being complete and utter sand eaters, I'm going to put these starting quarterbacks out of my mind because they should not be on the board at this point in the draft. So I'm back on the clock here, and I probably still need some running back help. So I'm going to just take a dart throw on DJ Giddens here. Hopefully that he can carve out the RB2 role there behind Jonathan Taylor. So we went through our Superflex drafts. Again, the sleeper ADP did not want to give us realistic stuff. But again, there's going to be Superflex leagues out there where this is what the board looks like. So I don't want to pretend that this is stupid and this would never happen because there's definitely newer Superflex leagues, which is probably why you clicked on this video. Maybe you're playing in Superflex for the first time this year. This is more so what the board is going to look like as opposed to a sharper Superflex league. So I end up drafting Mahomes, Murray, and Love to fill up my quarterback positions through 1 to 3. Like we said in the strategy portion, ideally you'd like to secure 2 or 3 starting quarterbacks who are not going to lose their job. I obviously get 3 that are pretty high end, top 10 to 12 quarterbacks in my rankings, and I would probably be looking to trade off of one of them in a real league. And then Richardson was just an upside dart throw for me. I kind of go with like a modified hero RB, where I grab Neighbors, Tyreek, Devontae Smith, Waddle, and Reed to fill up my wide receiver spots and my flexes. Grab Isaiah Pacheco as my hero, and then I'm kind of just going to figure out behind Pacheco, Spears, Dobbins, Sampson, and Giddens. Hopefully I get a starter right away at the beginning of the season. I feel like Dobbins could go into my lineup, and then Colston Loveland I feel comfortable with as my only tight end. I could definitely have grabbed a Dallas Goedert or something later, but he went off the board a little bit too soon for my liking. I could have grabbed like a Hunter Henry in the 13th round or whatever, and figured out my tight end position from there. But I like how the draft turned out. Obviously, I do feel like my quarterback position is a little better than it should be in a sharper league.
Yeah, for sure. And then in terms of my team, grab my hero there with Jaden Daniels. Very happy that I got a double hero RB with Devon Achane and Chase Brown, because after that, I mean, outside of Amari and Hampton, like the running back valuation in this draft in particular, it's kind of all over the place. So glad that I grabbed that double hero, fill out my wide receiver position, Xavier Worthy, Travis Hunter, George Pickens, Josh Downs, Stephon Diggs, Keenan Allen. Very good. Feel very good about both the upside and the depth at that wide receiver spot. On top of that, quarterback 2 and 3 with Trevor Lawrence and Michael Penix. I do stack Trevor Lawrence with Travis Hunter. Unfortunately, like I said, I was never going to take Kyle Pitts at the 11-7, and I did get sniped in the 12th round with Darnell Mooney. And on top of that, you mentioned your only tight end being Colston Loveland. If he had fallen, I absolutely would have taken him. I actually considered him at the Penix pick, but in terms of opportunity bundles, like we said, in relation to how you should view your Superflex leagues, I do prefer taking a Michael Penix and a Tucker Kraft over, say, if I hadn't gone Michael Penix, probably going to end up there with Colston Loveland plus Sam Darnold.
Yeah, no, exactly. Opportunity bundles, definitely a good way to go about things. Again, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully you got some value from it. To recap the strategy portions, get a top 4 guy if you can. Ideally, secure one of these QB1s in ADP. Feel out the board. See when the quarterbacks are starting to go. If you've been in the league for multiple years, go back and look at previous boards. When did the QB6 go off the board? When did the QB12 go off the board? When did the QB18 go off the board? Get a feel for the quarterback position. Generally, strategically on Sleeper, it looks like Danny picked the better strategy, which was, hey, I got myself a top 4 quarterback. Now I'm going to punt and see what falls back to me at each of my picks. That allowed you to grab your running backs and wide receivers, whereas I kind of took the first value that fell to me, and I kind of paid for it at the end there with being weaker at running back. So do some mocks, get some practice. Once Underdog drops a Superflex contest, they don't currently have one in the lobby at the moment, but definitely check it out. Get some practice on there. It'll give you a better sense, a better idea for where quarterbacks are supposed to go in sharp rooms that have paid money on the line. But again, keep in mind, best ball, there are no waivers, there are no trades. So they do behave a little bit differently on the market. Premium. And again, stack when possible. Your goal is to hit on 2 quarterback ones. We talked about that already. Don't get locked out, especially 12 and 14 man leaguers. 8 and 10 man's not as big of an issue. And then factor in the size of your league, like I just said. So that interest of all the stuff that we talked about, got some value from it. Check out everything we got going on over on Flock Fantasy. Our season pass is live right now. You can get our rankings, redraft rankings manifesto, our draft guide, which has Superflex rankings in it. If you guys are Superflex players, you probably are because you clicked on this video. You can check that out. You can also get the draft guides of all the other creators on the site. You can also get access to the site from August to the end of December, early January, when you'll need it for season long. And that is available to you for this low price of $35. $35 for 4 draft guides and season pass, basically to the entire season, weekly rankings, start, sit, rest of season, all the tools we have on the site. Best deal out there. Definitely check it out down below in the pinned comment. But with that being said, peace out, and we'll talk to you soon.